Okay, so in this particular tutorial video, I wanted to go over how to work with some of the type design rules in CSS and with code. So if you're looking in Module 2, there's this whole area to read and view, and the two places I want you to really thoroughly go through is the MDN website and then the Shay House working with typography. I actually prefer the MDN website, and most of this video is going to be related to that. But those are going to be your two best options. Then make sure that you go through all the practice, and then eventually I will have a video on the actual assignment for this module. Okay, so this is the MDN website, and specifically if I go in here, it brings up all these different sections, and this is this page. So it's going to start us out with it. And the reason why this is good to have open in your secondary window is because it's going to go over all the different rules and code so that you can try them out one by one, which is what we're going to do in this video. So I'm going to scroll down here, and this is the text that it gives you, the code it gives you to work with. Now, remember that you have to first create a new HTML page. So we need to make sure this is HTML. And because this is just practicing, I don't necessarily need to put it in a folder because there's no other pages or images that are going to go with this. But I do need to save it. So I'm just going to save it to the desktop as testing type.html. Remember, no capitals, no spaces, no special characters. And I'll just save it to the desktop. Okay. So this is the content that we're working with. Now, again, remember, for every HTML page, you need to have the doc type, the meta tag, all that other kind of stuff. But for right now, we're just going to put this content in here to keep it simple. Okay, so if we go to save and go to live preview, it's going to open up the live preview, and I can make this a little bit smaller so I can see what each thing is doing. Okay, so I think it's a good idea to come back over here, Module 1, Read and View, or where is it? Practice CodePen of Basic HTML Structure. And we're going to copy that. Oops. Command C. There we go. All right, so all this, because we want the end user to see it, I'm going to cut it and put it here. Okay, get rid of that H1, and there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself some space so you can see that we are focusing on this area. If I do save and come over here, you'll notice nothing happened, but this is now proper. So now what we can do is we can start adding some style in here. So style, and we can start adding some rules here. So if we go back to our MDN website, if we collapse it, that'll make it a little bit easier to read. It is going to start talking about, okay, the first thing that usually people want to know is how can we change the color. So you can just copy and paste this if you want to. I like to actually hand code it, but for purposes of this video, I'm just going to do this. Let's do blue violet, file, save. Okay, so you can see that right now, all it's doing is changing all the P tags to blue violet. So that is not affecting H1 because it's saying it's changing only the content that's in a P tag. And because this isn't inside of a P tag, it's not turning blue violet. Now, the other thing we can do if we wanted all the text on the page to be blue violet is to target the body tag or the HTML tag. So if I were to change this to body, then it would basically be saying anything that's in body, which is all of this, should be blue violet. So if I go to save and come here, now you can see blue violet. Okay, so you can mess with that, change it to any color you want. You can also use hexadecimal colors. I use a site called colorpicker.com, and it's just like a color picker you see in Illustrator or Photoshop. So if I wanted it to be, I like this color right here, I'm going to copy this, and I actually need the hashtag with it. So copy that and put that with the hashtag and file save. And there we see that same color. Okay, so coming back here, it talks about how can we actually change the font style that's happening here, because we have a traditional serif font that's happening. So let's again change this to font family Arial. So again, we could do it to the P tag if we wanted to. Hopefully this helps you see it a little bit better. So, or we can just do it to the body tag. I'm going to keep it the body tag, but you can keep following along with what they're doing. So I'm going to do font family, and I'm going to choose Arial, and then the semicolon. So again, I'm going to do Command S to save, and you can see it changed to Arial here. So then we talk about web safe fonts. These are fonts that most everybody has on their computer, so it's always going to show. But if I were to put something like Lobster font up here, I have Lobster font installed on my computer, but chances are that you don't have Lobster font on your computer. So yours will default to looking like it just did with that serif font. So that's not very cool. Because I want you to see what I'm seeing, because if I'm going to design it, I want people to actually see the design. So you can choose from these. You can choose Arial, Courier New, Georgia. So we can go ahead and put Georgia in here and see what it looks like, Georgia, and then save it. And you can see it's a sans serif font, or it's a serif font that looks very similar to the Times New Roman we originally had. So the other thing to think about is that sometimes people don't even have Georgia or Times New Roman or Arial. And so what do we do for that? Well, if I change this to Arial again, because I like clean sans serif fonts, if they don't have Arial, what I'm going to do is put this generic sans serif. So it'll find a font on their system that does not have serifs, so it looks very similar. So I'm going to put sans serif. And you should always put that generic alternative at the very end, just in case somebody doesn't have the font that you specified right here. So again, I'm going to save. This goes back to Arial. If I didn't have Arial, you'd see a different sans serif here. Okay. So then you can also do something called a font stack, which means that you can tell it what font to use. And if they don't have that, you can tell them a second font to use. And if they don't have that, you can tell them a third font to use. So you can just keep going down the line. So I actually really like Helvetica Neue. And Helvetica Neue, because it is two different words, Helvetica, I always spell that wrong, Neue, I have to put it in quotes and then a comma. So it's going to look for Helvetica Neue first if they don't have it. So if you're a PC user, you do not have Helvetica Neue. So if you look at this website, it'll look a little bit different because it'll look like it has Arial. But now if I save this, you can see the change here is minimal, but now this is using Helvetica Neue instead of Arial. So font stacking is good for that purpose, so that you can tell them alternative fonts just in case they don't have that font. So let's see. All right. So this is a font family example. We just went over that. And then let's see. All right. So font size, it starts to talk about the difference between pixels, ems, and rems. So the pixel is pretty definitive. If you say it should be 10 pixels, it's going to be 10 pixels. And it's going to be hard to, you have to balance and try to figure out what sizes everything should be so that it all looks like it has good hierarchy, but it all goes together. Ems and rems are kind of like ratios in a sense. So ems are based on the letter M, and they get a little confusing to work with in math and things like that. Don't worry about that. All you need to do is understand font size. So if I go to font size and I put 15 pixels, watch what happens. Let's save that. And see how this changed to 15 pixels? Now here's the thing. It's going to affect all of the body, so that's why Tommy the cat changed its size, is because it had 15 pixels. If I put 55 and save that, see how everything gets super big, but this is still bigger? So I only want the font size to actually affect the paragraph. So this is where I'm going to write a new rule and put, I want to affect only the paragraph, and I want to do font size, and I'm going to do 16px. Oops. Okay. So let's save that. Now it's not affecting the H1 at all. And this looks like a pretty good font size. So I can keep messing with this size and see what I get. Now if I put M's, or 16, or let's do 2M. Look how big that is. So I'm not going to go into all the ratios and how it's calculating and all that other kind of stuff with you. Just know that if you want to use m's, just start messing around with it and say, okay, well, what does 1.3 m's look like? Well, that's not too bad for a kid's site, but maybe I want to do like 0.9 m's. Save that. That looks pretty good, but 1 m is just a pretty good ratio for me. I'm going to just leave it at 1 m. Okay, so let's see, we're skipping all of that stuff. So again, these are font size examples, and it's saying all the fonts should be 10 pixels unless it's an H1, then it should be 5 rems, and unless it's in a P tag, then it should be 1.5 rems. So it's just telling you that you can change different sizes for different tags. But for right now, I have all of my paragraphs as 1M. All right, so then we come down here, and there's all these different things you can do, and it's trying to tell you what properties they have. So what this is all of this is considered your property, so the thing you want to change, and then these are the values, the actual options for changing it. So if I come over here, I can type the property of font style, colon, and then type one of these values. So if I type italic and put a semicolon, because you have to end that statement with a semicolon, then I can do file save, and you'll notice that all the P tags, this is one P tag, and this is a second P tag, all of them are affected by that font style italic. If I come over here and do font weight, I can come in here and say font weight, and I can do between 1 and 900, or I can do bold, bolder. So let's do bold, close it with a semicolon, file save, there's bold. Let's see if bolder, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't do anything. So we'll save that and see how it didn't do anything there, but for some it does. So there we go. And then text transform, let's try that property, text transform. And then I would just mess with all of these different values. Capitalize is going to capitalize all the letters, so I can do that. Control S to save. And see how it did capitalize all the letters in the paragraph? Well, I didn't want that to happen, but I do probably want that to happen for the H1. So I'm going to add H1 curly brace and paste that capitalized in there. So now when I do Command S, you can see that this one goes back to its normal capitalization, but now the and cat have capital letters to start with. Instead of capitalize, maybe I want to do uppercase. Again, save, and all of a sudden that's uppercase. So you can mess with all of these to see what all of them do. In addition, you can add underline, overline, line through. You can add all those different options. So this is what we have for this particular. If you want yours to look like theirs, you can copy all these styles and put them in between your style tag to see what we've got going on. Okay, so other things, this is fun. You get this text shadow, so we can put this on the H1 and see what happens. Save it, and then all of a sudden you can see a blurry red. So then I can mess with this and do like blue and save it. There's blue. I can see what this does and do like 50 and see how it gets super dispersed. Or I can do 1 pixel and you can see that it doesn't have as much blurry. And then I can change this to like 15 and save it, and you can see it goes further 15 out. I can even do -15 and save it, and it goes to the left. So again, I can do -15 here. And I think I should tell you that some of these styles you shouldn't actually really be using because they look hideous, but just using garish colors and messing with all those settings will help you learn them. So that's what I recommend for this, is that you go through all of these different properties and values. This is going to show you how you can center stuff, how you can change the line height, the spacing between lines to make it easier to read. You can do some letter or word spacing, which looks terrible here, but actually sometimes I use it in headings. And then all of these ones I don't think I've ever actually really used, so you don't have to pay attention to that. But I would just play with all of those different things and see what you can come up with and get familiar with writing styles and all of those different properties and values. Again, we want something that looks good, but this is just for play.